Welcome to Missed Opportunities for Good, the podcast where we open up the space to have conversations about trends and campaigns at the intersection of marketing, advertising, and impact.
Hi, I'm Alana Ficalora.
Hey, I'm Steph Belsky.
We're social impact strategists, colleagues, and friends who are on a mission to revolutionize the industry we love.
Today, there's a lot of virtue signaling, greenwashing, cause washing, or companies saying nothing out of fear of getting it wrong.
Whether it's a moment or a movement, it still has to be real. It has to be authentic and aligned with the brand, not just performative. It's about the action being taken that goes along with the messaging.
So, we're here to highlight who's doing it well, what could be better, and how companies can stop leaving money and the potential for real social change on the table.
Our guest today on Creative Conversations is Melissa Orozco. Melissa, before we get into introducing you and actually telling everybody what you do, we would love to hear why you do what you do without actually saying what you do.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I like that framing of the question, but now I have to think, okay, this is like a categories game or like some kind of charades.
Yeah, taboo.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to be a spin doctor.
Ooh.
And I didn't want to work in a corporate setting where I was burying the truth and sort of spinning things. It just made me feel icky.
Yeah. And I'll ask it in another way too, because I do really like that. But also, essentially, what's your why? Like, what's your why behind how you show up in the world and how you've built your career path?
This is going to sound cheesy. I just want my work and my day-to-day to be worth something and leave the next generation in a better place. This just sounds so cliche.
It's not so cliche. It's real.
It's real.
I'll probably have other ways of framing that as we go, but that is the truth. I moved to Vancouver in 2008. Can I just dive in?
Yeah, dive in.
From New York, and I was working at different communications agencies, and I enjoyed them, but they weren't necessarily fulfilling. Got a 3-year sponsored visa in Canada, was doing more corporate comms. All of the companies that I worked for were good companies. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the people that I worked with, but I wasn't sure what the long-term goal was going to be. And then my visa was coming up to an end, my work permit, and I was going to have to go back to New York or the States. And I was waiting for my permanent residence to come in. And then I went to my friend's cabin and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to start my own consultancy. And initially when I started it, I thought I'm going to keep it 50% cause-based. That way I can sort of enjoy the clients that we're working with. And naturally, it kind of made that decision for me, if I'm honest. 50% of my accounts, which was like 4 accounts, so 2 of them were nonprofits. And that was because I was a small business and they had small budgets. And so we kind of just found each other harmoniously. And then the other 2 accounts were for-profit and they were in industries I was familiar with, but I wasn't necessarily, energized by that work. And so I made my first hire, and just to stay accountable, I told her one day, let's put this on our website that we are going to be a 50% cause-based organization. Like we'll always reserve 50% of our portfolio for organizations that are doing good things.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I founded Yulu, that's the name of my company, in 2011. I moved to Canada in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of years of that 50% mandate, we had heard about the B Corp community and were really curious and wanted to become a B Corp. So B Corp is an organization managed by a nonprofit called B Lab, and B Lab has developed B Corp certification. It's a certification model so that businesses can go through a very rigorous approval process to get certified and demonstrate that they are putting public and social and environmental benefit at the forefront of their business decisions. So I think there's like 8,000 B Corps now, and you're going to see like Ben and Jerry's and Allbirds and lots of consumer packaged good products. But what's great about B Corp is a lot of those organizations, like if you're a food organization, you can be certified organic, you can be fair trade if you're like clothing. But for business services companies such as myself, we don't have a product to certify to show our values. So B Corp certification was a way for us to demonstrate and be held to our values as a business service company. So that's one of the biggest differentiators with B Corp certification and other certification models that are really honed in on one specific industry. Anyway, the B Corp community is great. We're big friends with them. And when we became B Corp certified, it took us about 2 years to become certified because it's a rigorous process. We had to change systems within. We had to talk to our building and see if they could do things more environmentally sound or move. And, we made lots of changes. And then by the time we became certified, we got declined a couple times, which is good. Shows that they don't just let anybody in. By the time we became certified, we had decided at that point, okay, we want to go all in. Let's stop taking any clients that aren't committed to using their brand as a force for good. We'll only work with organizations that want to use their brand as a force for good. And then any of the clients that are grandfathered in that we've been working with, they might be finance clients, real estate, we'll only continue working with them if they allow us to embed some type of impact program into their work. And that was a stretch for some of the clients. And eventually we had to sever the ties after a couple of years of like really trying to push it. And then we changed our philosophy on that. And we said, we don't want to just work with organizations that want to use their platform as a force for good. We want to work with organizations that don't know any better, that don't know how to be good, but want to be good, but aren't innately good. They're for-profit businesses. And this was before the whole brand purpose movement started. This is before. Of course. Yeah. So for a long time, it was kind of like we were at the boardroom pitching an idea and they were looking at us like Girl Scouts, like giving us an invisible tap on the top of the head. They thought it was cute. But they didn't really think it was a strategic, wise business move. So that didn't roll into a lucrative business idea right away overnight. It was just something that was sort of slowly ticking and we were growing and we were working on some really cool stuff. And we always prided ourselves in the fact that we punched above our weight and that we were able to still work with big brands for being such a small team. And today we're just, double that size, which I'm also happy with that size. And I don't see us growing a lot in the next year or two with all the uncertainty happening. More than half of our clients are in the States. A lot of them are in the environment space and clean energy and renewables. Some of them are nonprofits that have grant funding from the government that's getting cut. So to just maintain status quo would be a hugely successful year. Yeah. And we'll see.
This is so rich and so good. Thank you so much for sharing. And if it's okay with you, we're also going to share your bio so that people know what an incredible resume you have and how you've built this. So if you will allow me the pleasure, Melissa Orozco is the founder and chief impact strategist of Yulu Impact Communications, a B Corp PR agency helping organizations amplify their social and environmental impact, as you shared, and global reach. Known for purpose-driven campaigns for brands like Audible, The Body Shop, Aldo, and Red Bull Amafico, she also launched the Impact Communications Institute. I'm very excited to dive into this, a global network driving systemic change in the communications industry. So, Melissa, you have just shared your story and origins, which is phenomenal. And you sort of alluded to it, but really what first drew you to Impact? Tell us a little bit more about that.
It was a natural progression of wanting to do something different from the corporate environment that I had been in, feeling optimistic. And I was 27 when I started my business. When people talk to me and they're a bit older than I was at that time, and maybe they have kids or they have other higher risk things, I'm definitely not like, just leap in, do what I like. No, that was crazy and stupid, but I had nothing to lose. And I had, every risk to take was fine. I was So whatever, I put in all my chips and I bet on impact. And then, over the years, it started to pick up pace, which was great. Maybe we played a decimal of an impact in that influence, but I don't think so. Obviously, it's our clients, right?
Yeah.
So it was cool to see all of the clients, all of the for-profit brands coming around. That was the biggest catapult for the impact industry, was not just going to these conferences and talking with the converted and talking with nonprofits, but seeing big brands there wanting to learn and dive into that stuff. So that was a new challenge that was just really attractive to me and appealing to me. Like, I loved the idea of being able to influence some of the biggest influential brands from within. And so that's what we do with those clients. Like, we don't do their product PR. We don't do any of their consumer PR. We don't promote Red Bull's energy drinks. We don't promote Aldo Fashion or any of their new collections. We don't promote audiobooks on Audible. We don't do any of their primary product PR. They have an agency for that.
Yeah.
We strictly do impact programming, and we go in and we do lots of research in the beginning. We follow a change theory framework and make sure that we've got approval and buy-in from the top. And if it's a global brand, we want to make sure that we're dealing with the head of that country, whichever region we're working with. And the biggest success indicator is when we start dealing with their boss and we work with a different region and then their boss, and we continue to work with bigger parts of those brands.
Very cool that you are able to come in and work with companies that may not already be in this space and be as impact driven, and being able to convince them that this is an important piece of their portfolio that they should be adding and actions that they need to be taking, and to incorporate it internally and continue to grow with those brands and scale to other regions.
Yeah, they weren't always coming to us for impact programming. That is more of a thing that's happening today. Initially, they would come to us for traditional PR stuff, and we would call this conversion clients. So they would come to us. Audible is, again, a good example of this. They put out an RFP for a tech and consumer PR agency to do their PR. And so before sending them an email and saying, sorry, this isn't the kind of work that we do, because Yulu turns away about 90% of the business that comes our way because it's not a fit for our social mandate.
Good for you.
Oftentimes we have a very friendly but firm stance on, sorry, this doesn't work for us, and we'll send it to other agencies that we know it would be a good fit for, just so that we are kind of redirecting them. And with Audible, we were kind of like, before we hit send on that response, they have the platform. Maybe we can take the pitch. And we got on a plane and flew to their office and took the pitch. It was a bigger investment than I would normally take. But again, young and fearless. I don't know.
We love it.
At the time, I didn't have my kids. I was able to hop on a plane on a whim.
There you go.
So we go and we're in the waiting room and the other firm is leaving. And we go in and we say, so we're not here to talk to you about the pitch that you guys put an RFP out for. And they're kind of looking at each other like, why the hell are you here? Time is precious. And it's like, so I don't know how we got on your radar, but Yulu does this type of communications. We're an impact driven. We exclusively work with these accounts. Were you aware of that? And I think they're kind of looking at the person at the end of the table like, were you aware of that? But then, I was like, I think you guys have a really great platform and an opportunity to leverage this platform for much more.
Totally.
And when you talk to organizations about their potential, and then sometimes there's oh, we agree. Sometimes there's a little bit of defensiveness. They're like, we are doing impact stuff. We have this program. We have this and that. And so you want to just kind of be careful with how you're navigating that conversation, because all of these brands do have some efforts. And for a lot of organizations, it's like a foundation and they're cutting a check and they've got beneficiaries to different causes that they care about. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that are perfect clients for us, because we're like, okay, let's not cut that check just yet. Let's use that money to develop a program. So obviously talking to us about their Activate Caring program. And I was like, amazing. So you guys obviously already care about this. You're already putting funds towards this. And then the head of Canada was kind of like, I don't feel comfortable. So they said, okay, thank you. That was a riveting presentation, but not what we need. And they said bye. And so I was like, okay. So we went back to Vancouver and whatever, we had a fun time pitching. And then I got a email a week later from the woman that was driving the whole process named Raquel. And she's lovely. And she's like, so the president of Canada, he wants to meet with you. She didn't know why. She was very confused. And then I talked to him and he's like, I really like what you guys had to say. I feel like if we're going to roll something out like this, I need to be trained first on this space. I need to like be able to speak to it. And I was like, respect, man. Like I loved that he wanted to go through that like deep work first.
Yeah.
So I went down to Washington. We had a couple meetings and we did a couple like coaching stuff. I just wanted him to kind of get familiar with what it was. Then later on, maybe 6 months later, they said, okay, we want to start exploring this with you all because they recognize that they're not a Canadian-based organization. So to show up in a different market, they really need to take extra effort to show up intentionally and thoughtfully. And it's so nice when organizations do this right. So that's why I'm choosing to focus so strongly on Audible, because I think they're just like the gold standard for our clients that have done this. So they say, okay, you guys are there. Can you please tell us how we go about this? I said, we're going to do some countrywide research and see what the different pressing issues are in the country. And then we're going to make some recommendations to you based on our research on what we think would be really good areas for you all as a brand to show up and where it makes sense. So before that, we had already done a lot of interview-based research with different stakeholders within Audible to hear about things that are important to them, things that they're living in their values and whatnot. So we had that insight. Then we did a research project and we came back with about 10 different areas. It was like education, at-risk youth, mental health. There was a lot of opportunities because there's a lot of genres of books that we could have just kind of like spun off of and like done something with the library of Audible. But what we ended up landing on, and we were biased in our presentation of it because we really, really hoped that they would choose it, is the repressed stories of Indigenous folks in Canada. And we wanted to lift their voices up, lift their stories up, and give them a platform because there's finally a really great effort for reconciliation happening in Canada. And we just want to honor that.
Melissa, this is a great stopping point because we're going to talk about this campaign as your case study today, right? So we would just love, because I'm on the edge of my seat and I know Alana is too, and we can't wait to hear all about the nuts and bolts and how this all came together. So before we jump in, we just want to quickly review our criteria for our listeners and for you. So the first thing we always look at, which sounds like you really look at too, is alignment.
Next, we also look at partnerships,
call to action and transparency,
engagement,
and optimization and amplification.
So with that, if you want to continue where we interrupted this story.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we were pushing for raising the voices of Indigenous folks because of the efforts of reconciliation happening in Canada. Audible loved the idea. They knew that in order for them to back it, and this was because we had conducted some cultural sensitivity workshops and trainings for Audible because we were like, okay, now you want to back this, you want to support this area. We need to make sure that you kind of like understand the history of it a little bit more. And so we brought in some Indigenous mentors and coaches to do some cultural sensitivity workshops with the team. We just wanted to make sure that the coach understood what Activate Caring and Audible's values were all about, and that Audible knew what was important to the mentors that we were going to be engaging for the program and the participants in the cohort. Now I'm getting ahead of myself, but we were just looking for a positive alignment and making sure that where there wasn't alignment, that we were giving some coaching to the Audible team so that they could just really come in just educated. Yeah. We developed a program called the Audible Indigenous Writers Circle. It's a mentorship cohort where we bring in 15 participants every year. We usually get, upward of 300, 400 applicants every year. We're in our 5th year now. We take them from writers and turn them into authors through the program. They're writers of different forms. They're spoken word. They might be doing a screenplay. There's all different forms of writing. And they come together and they work with established, respected writers and mentors. Like Tanya Tilaga is a big name. She wrote Seven Fallen Feathers. January Rogers, she's been a mentor for 4 years. She's a media producer and a writer. So we've got different Indigenous mentors that we engaged. And it's nice because they reach into their network and bring other folks that are really established in the Canadian space to come into the mentorship group. And then they're just so invested. And we bring in these fellows and they work with them for a year. They work on their work. We have in-person and virtual gatherings throughout the year. And it's a real sensitive, emotional, exhausting, and exhilarating experience for everybody because there's a lot of pressure when these participants get accepted into the program too. They don't want to miss their shot. They want to do things right. And so it's challenging on that front for them. But the mentors that are working with them are just like so aware of that, and nobody has dropped out of the program, which I say that because we've done programs like this before, and it's so overwhelming for the participants. We had this happen with another mentorship fellow program that we did, and we learn lessons as we go, and we make sure that we're paying more attention to that too. It could be for a number of reasons why it doesn't work out for someone, but in any case, Audible is amazing in the sense that they are creating this space, creating this platform, bringing these people together, publishing there's not a set agreement. Audible doesn't own the rights to anything. They don't own the rights to anything that's published. Yeah. There's not a capital objective at the end of it. If the creators want to publish with Audible, if they want to do that deal, the mentors will work with them and try to find the best outcome for them. And I think that's really important too when you're building these, is it just needs to always be focused on the beneficiary and the participants.
I love how Audible approached this with you, and how, even though, because I had the same experience when I was first starting my consulting company of like, I would go to ad agencies and PR firms and be like, I want to help you do your impact stuff better. And they'd be like, but we already do it. And I'm like, you're right. Goodbye. Right. And I just love that you pushed Audible just a little bit further to do the internal work first.
Yeah.
And really do that heart work internally so that they could then have something to celebrate that was real and that wasn't performative. And that speaks volumes, Melissa, of what you and the Yulu Impact team are doing, but also of who Audible is. And that's really the celebration.
Right. And on the other side of the spectrum, for that example that you're giving, we have worked with organizations where we've pushed them to do that work, where we've done the interview-based research with folks within their company, and this organization was in the entertainment space, very big brand, wanted to roll out a campaign focused on mental health or an impact program focused on mental health. And we said, okay, well, let's look under the hood first. Let's talk to your friends and family inside the company, and let's see what this looks like internally. We want to make sure that you're living and walking the values. And we were doing these interviews, and interview over interview, it was very evident that mental health was the lowest priority for this company. And it was difficult for them to address it overnight because it's in the entertainment space. It's long hours, it's lifestyle, it's all of this stuff that is kind of like a horribly difficult beast to tame. And so maybe that's not the angle that you want to go with. Maybe that's not the area that makes sense, but they wanted it to. And I appreciated that they did. But ultimately, we said, here is all the evidence why this could potentially backfire, why we don't think that you as an organization are in a position to be championing this topic. There's too much pain in this topic area internally for you to be in a position to do this. So we said, here are recommendations of things that can start changing this from within. And please feel free if you have questions, but give us a call when you're ready to apply these. And unfortunately, as we predicted, was due to the industry, it was not possible. I think probably looking back, I mean, that was like 7 years ago. I think probably looking back, we could have pushed them a little bit further to just redirect their attention. They were so focused on this thing, and we were really trying to say, like, not now, this is not appropriate. And I think today I would have probably been like, yes, and okay, we appreciate that you want to do that, but why don't we listen to some of the insights of where you do have opportunity? Yeah. So
yeah,
Hey,
and entertainment and mental health is
live
definitely
and
an
learn.
interesting,
Yeah.
interesting
and
space
like,
as somebody.
it has to have alignment, and there's just a big miss on the alignment there.
Yeah. And I think it's important. Look, I think there's so many people that are often in the room in these conversations when it is not with a traditional impact driven agency or a PR company, comms company, right? Where nobody speaks up to say, hey, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't fit with your employees. This doesn't fit with your values. There's a lot of things you can speak to, and this is probably not the right choice right now.
Right.
So even being able to stand by your values and know that you're not there to do something that doesn't make sense and is aligned with the company is also really important, and such a great example of that. Maybe it loses a client or a potential job opportunity, partnership opportunity, but it might not sink into them right away. But hopefully they didn't just go with a different company to have that
Mm-hmm.
program built out,
Right.
Yeah.
because ultimately it'll bite them in the butt anyways, you would imagine,
Yeah.
because
And
people
honestly,
aren't dumb.
if I ever had the crazy idea of being like, okay, I'm going to ignore everything and we're going to go with it anyway, I think I would lose team members, because the team is so passionate about the mission and the social mandate of how we
Yeah.
engage clients that it would be detrimental to Yulu if we started compromising those client standards.
Absolutely.
So it's just important to our company to stick to it too.
Yeah. And I think that's also important for other companies to realize that
Yeah.
employees care about this just as much. And so even for their own companies, that if they're not continually speaking to their values or sticking to their values, that it has a backlash effect on employee retention
Mm-hmm.
too, right? It's not just consumers, it's also your employees. And we know it's expensive to hire and train new employees. So,
Exactly.
especially if you like the ones you have, why don't you work on keeping them?
What a novel concept.
I know, right? Yeah. And it's amazing to see too that you've grown this program year over year and that you've been running it for 5 years. I mean, that's also a testament to Audible as being a great
Yeah.
partner and believing in the program and continuing
Mm-hmm. No, they're great.
to develop it year over year. So awesome. Thanks so much for sharing this with us.
Mm-hmm.
I have a totally separate question that I'm very curious about.
Mm-hmm.
What does Yulu stand for? Or what is it? How did you name it, the company Yulu, to be?
Some colleagues helped me name it in the early days. When I started Yulu, there was a couple guys that I was going to start it with, and they had worked in the Asian markets, and they really wanted to have some kind of like spin on that. So they named the company, and then when they decided they weren't going to they weren't ready to start an agency yet, and they were just going to stick with their day jobs, I was like, I like the name and I'm going to continue with it. But Yulu is a soft translation in Cantonese or Mandarin, and I don't remember which one, but it is Yu means to speak and Lu is road, or vice versa. And it essentially is like a soft translation of the journey of words.
Ooh.
I like
Yeah,
that.
very appropriate.
Just my own personal curiosity,
Yeah,
because it felt like it had a meaning behind it. So I was
So
curious.
I remember when I was in New York in school, in one of my marketing classes, they're talking about like naming products. And they said, when you name something, it should be something fun to say. And the examples that he gave were iPod, Google, Yahoo, and like these words are just fun to say. And I was like, Yulu, that's a fun word to say. And I feel like
Totally.
never has anybody come back and been like, what's your company's name again? They always remember Yulu. It's easy, it's fun. So that's
Well
why
done.
I ran with it. I like it.
Amazing. Okay, now my real question. On a personal note, since I'm sure you get to work on so many different issue areas across your company,
Mhm.
and some may be directed by your own interests, but I'm sure often it's done, driven by the research and the values these companies hold.
Mhm.
Is there an issue area or multiple areas that you're personally most passionate about?
So people would always ask, like, how do you decide what area to get into in the impact space? Like, how do you
Yeah.
choose? And I would always come back with the question of, well, what pisses you off? I think that's a good place to start. And
Yeah.
so historically, the things that pissed me off was prison reform, really passionate about that for many years. housing, people experiencing homelessness or living with mental health and therefore experiencing homelessness,
Yeah.
and social justice issues, essentially. I lived and worked in the downtown east side of Vancouver for many years. Our office is still on the downtown east side. And for folks that aren't familiar with that means, it's essentially ground zero of opioid crisis in Canada and lots of mental health issues. And you can just see walking down the streets the disproportionately marginalized racial complexities too. It's unfortunately so many Indigenous folks that kind of just didn't have the same opportunities as others, and then sprinkled in a little bit of something else here and there, but it's really disproportionate. And so living and working in that environment tends to really piss you off about like the social scenarios that lead to that and how can we fix it. So that, but then I'd say now that I'm a mom and going through postpartum anxiety with my second daughter and having that as like a new lived experience and just being a parent, my passion areas have widened, and I lean more these days into women's health issues, mental health, work-life balance, access to education. I'm thinking a lot about the future of education, future of the environmental climate, future of housing affordability, all of these things that like a mother stays up thinking about. And that is because of the postpartum stuff and living in Vancouver, where it's not cheap to buy a home and it's only getting less affordable, and thinking about how my kids are going to be able to stay in the same city as us. So those are areas I'm passionate about. I'm still passionate about the other stuff too, but my scope has just widened.
Yeah, for sure.
I think with the first part too, I mentioned I'm born in the States. My family's all in the US. So seeing the prison issues there and then coming here and seeing that it's still the biggest difference between the US prison system and the Canadian prison system is that in the US, it's disproportionately Black people. Yeah. In Canada, it's disproportionately Indigenous people. And so it's very obvious that there's just a socioeconomic, social hindrance from day one. So school to prison pipeline stuff is something that's still very interesting and kind of blends both worlds too.
Yeah. Have you all ever done any projects around the school to prison pipeline?
Yeah, we have done smaller campaigns, but one client that I love is Greyston Bakery. They are the bakery that provides all of the brownies for Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
I knew that was familiar. Yeah.
And they are very well known for employing folks that have experienced incarceration. So formerly incarcerated people, they can go there. They have a no questions asked policy. And what's really great about Greyston is it's not just about giving individuals a job and not looking at that convicted felony box on the interview or on the resume or job application. It's about having social worker support there to be able to actually help these individuals return to society, because they have parole officers, they have other extenuating circumstances that are going to make them late for work, and a zero tolerance policy because you're quote unquote giving someone a chance is just a horrible way to look at that that whole space. So if someone's going to be employing formerly incarcerated people, they really need to understand that it's an equity commitment. Like, you do have to give more to make sure that these individuals have a fair shot at returning to the workplace and being sustained contributing citizens. And it's because they've had such a disadvantage all their life. So it's great when organizations say, like, we're not just going to hire you, we're going to also set you up for success. And that means we're going to be understanding to all of the different circumstances that are going to make it difficult for you to show up to work every day, and within reason. But Greyston is another gold standard business that has really tackled that beautifully.
I love that.
Yeah.
Incredible
Work.
Something
else that I really love about Greyston and working with them is we went out to Yonkers a couple times. Their bakery is in like 45 minutes north of New York in Manhattan. And we've done media training because the bakers will do media interviews sometimes. And we were like, okay, it's really important that they don't feel like they're being objectified. Like they don't feel like they have to be the spokespeople for the brand. I want to talk with them and make sure that they know that they don't have to do that. And, we were doing this media training and seeing who has an interest to do this, who's going to feel empowered, who's going to feel like they're, for some, they're like, oh my God, like my mom is so proud and they're doing media interviews. And this is like thing that they never imagine. It gives them confidence. And it's just checking all of these boxes to help continue to grow in the corporate space and mental space that they want to grow. Absolutely. And then others are kind of like, I don't really want that part of my history to be broadcasted. So I'm at a communion with my girlfriend and her family. I don't want her cousin to be like, I saw you on the news. I didn't know that was your history. Like, well, then thank you for sharing that. Let's make sure that if anybody else has that. And so Grayson was just very sensitive and aware of making sure that that was respected too. And, they're fantastic in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's such an important note. There's an organization I volunteer with called Manifest Works based in Los Angeles, and it trains people who have been impacted by incarceration, homelessness, foster youth, or substance abuse to be PAs on set, because in production, nobody checks, does a background check or any of that. So it's easy to walk onto set and nobody knows your background.
Yeah.
And they do offer tons of social services in addition to the training program, and continue with the alumni as well with those social services as needed. So people are set up for success. But one of the big things we talk to people about in their interviews, both for the program and then remind them while they're in the program and when they show up on set, is that you don't need to leave with that history. You can, if this is your second chance, like you don't have to talk about that anymore. That doesn't define you.
Yeah.
And you can be whoever you want to be now. These are people who don't know you. They don't know what's going on. And you can walk into this space and just show up now as a production assistant. And now you're a Teamster, or now you're a locations person, or now you're a Crip. You can go wherever you want to go. And, that was a piece of your life. And if you want to talk about it and you want to share that part of your story, great. There are people who have gone on to become public speakers and all of that. But also, if you don't, that's fine too. And you can step into the power of who you are now and who you want to become. So I love that they respect those boundaries for people as well.
Ooh, I want to look that company up.
I'll send it to you. We'll include it in the show notes as well.
Amazing.
So, Melissa, you've told us a lot of different projects that you've worked on. What would your ideal project or collaboration be?
I love the impact programming. I love working with brands that need us, as opposed to like a lot of, I don't want to say that our other clients don't need us, but they don't need us to consult them on, if it's a renewable energy or some kind of climate solution. We're not telling them how to be more impactful. They would laugh at us. That's what their mandate is. But for brands that are really curious and showing an appetite for it, we just really enjoy building the impact programs for them, and then making sure that they have a story to tell before we start telling it. Their story of their product has been told enough, and we don't want to tell that story. And so that's kind of our sweet spot for the type of brands that we want to continue to grow our portfolio in.
I love that. So important. Yes, we talk about it all the time. You have to have a story to tell before you start telling it. So
yeah, exactly.
So key.
And when we're working with these impact programs, like what's the coolest thing about them is we engage them in partnerships with organizations that are on the front line of rescue. And so the partnerships are so key with any of these brands, because the mentors, like even Yulu, we are impact strategists, but we're not experts in these areas, and we don't have the lived experiences. So we'll bring in people that do, and then that partnership helps them make sure that the program is authentic and culturally sensitive and informed, et cetera.
And you're all better off for it. One of the things that we haven't covered yet that I would love to hear more about is the Impact Communications Institute, because I really think that this is an incredible resource that you've built, that you're putting together, and that could help a lot of folks in the industry who are looking to do this work do it better. So if you would mind sharing a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Sure. So in the vein of impact programs, what we like to build for our clients, the Impact Comms Institute is very much our impact program. So with the same sort of approach that we would with a client, it's thinking, okay, what can we leverage our brand for? What is something that we want to see change in the world, in our industry, et cetera? And it was always very clear from the beginning of Yulu that we wanted to see more responsible communications practices being taught and incorporated in in-house comms policies as well as agency policies. And so I collaborated with a handful of CMOs and chief communications officers. That we had the head of comms for Ben and Jerry's, for sustainable brands, for Kind Snacks, Porter Novelli, which is one of the largest comms agencies, and Carol Cohn's old agency, forgetting the name of it. Anyway, so collaborated with folks from different agencies and in-house brands, and we created a board, and then we started the Impact Comms Institute. And so that was about 5 years ago. And today I think we're like kind of on the cusp of growing a lot more soon, because we're about 1,500 people that are part of the community that engage at different points. Every month we have what's called an impact council, and to join it's free. So the whole purpose of the mandate of the organization, it's a 501c3 nonprofit. Our purpose is to make these learnings, ethical communications, and like the teaching of responsible communications accessible, because I go to a lot of conferences, and you guys probably go to different conferences. They're not cheap. You can only send like the C-suites of a company. It's not accessible to everybody in the organization. It's just difficult. And then of course, students, sometimes you can attend these sessions if you're a volunteer and you're like taking notes at the different sessions, but you don't really get to participate in it. So we wanted to just make sure that this remained accessible to all. So everything is free. You just go to our website and you pledge, and we have a mandate on impactcommsinstitute.org. And there's a pledge button at the top of the page. And the pledge is pretty simple. Would you like me to read through it?
Please.
Okay. So lead with the truth. So commit to using transparent, authentic communications and abide by a no spin policy. The second one is call each other in. Call in, not out. The organization is looking to lean into a greater purpose, even if their road to positive impact is a long one. Those businesses need your guidance the most. The next one is strive for impact. So think beyond awareness building and leverage the tools of communications to call people to a specific action. The next one is listen before acting. So understand the needs of your societal stakeholders before acting. And then walk the walk, demonstrate organizational commitments through daily actions. We've touched on all this in our conversation today.
Yeah.
And the last one is measure what matters. So measure the success of your communications efforts, not only by media metrics or audience reach, but also by social and environmental benefits, which that one's always the longest, hardest one, and the biggest question people have. How are you doing that? So we'll do sessions every once in a while about how do you measure impact? What would you look at? You do some impact assessments at the start and set a proxy, and maybe you want to use a theory of change model, and you want to like set the impact that you want to have, and you can have short-term, midterm, and long-term impact. And the long-term outcomes are the impact, but the short-term outcomes of your strategy are just like the feedback. Really, it's kind of like, okay, now what do you do with that? So that's a whole other session.
Yeah, I love it.
But we ask people to take the pledge, and they take the pledge. And as soon as you take the pledge, then you're signed up for, by the way, you too should take the pledge.
I was going to say, yes, missed opportunities for good. We'll definitely be taking the pledge. I know Love of Good just took the pledge, and I think everybody in the Purpose Collaborative should also take the pledge. So calling you out and in, friends, take the pledge.
Yes. Yeah. So we have monthly impact councils, and we have great guests that come and join our impact councils. Ben and Jerry's is always on, Greyston Bakery, For All Raven, American Red Cross, McDonald's, Patagonia. Yeah, we just had one last week that was about creators for good, ethics, and influence. So it was all about how to engage influencers and content creators that are, if they're a content creator or an influencer that is in the impact space, maybe they're an advocate for something, if it's about women's rights, if it's about living with a disability or whatever it is, like how is the engagement and outreach different for that than a regular content creator. And it was a very,
Cool.
very good session. I'm actually going to drop that link into here too.
Great.
Oh, perfect. We can link to that as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all about that and the details. I'm excited to dive into it more and join.
And one more thing to mention.
Yeah.
So I just talked about the impact councils and the pledge, but this summer we're refining and finishing up a certification program. So we'll be rolling out an impact communication certification next year. And we're working with some of the brands that we've had in the hot seat for the impact councils, come back and teach different modules. So people can join, and it'll be really affordable to students. And then, we got to start making money first.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
So the certification will be the only paid component, but it's going to be equitably rated. So depending on how big your business is, or if you're a student, et cetera, the rates are different.
This is amazing, Melissa. Congratulations. And thank you, because this is something we all need. So fantastic.
So
fantastic work.
That's Yulu's impact program, right? So we dedicate a lot of our Yulu team resources to it. And then we have an amazing board. They're just so dedicated. They're incredible. And they help keep the content fresh and impactful. And it's great.
Incredible. Last question for you before we wrap up. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Oh my God, AI.
Go on.
Happening. So I went on mat leave. So in Canada, we get a year off. And so with my son, I actually took 18 months. And then when I came back to work, I was already pregnant again with my daughter. And so my team was like, don't get on the client's stuff, just stay with the team. And then we'll get you when you come back after your daughter's mat leave. So I came back 2 months ago after what felt like 3 years. So it was essentially and so the things that changed while away.
Yeah.
It's like if someone comes out of a coma and everybody has cell phones all of a sudden. It was just really weird, because anyone who has had kids kind of can appreciate that haze. But I come back and LinkedIn is suddenly doing what LinkedIn was, I think, originally set out to do. It's serving as a network of professionals, and people are actually engaging and posting and and it's not just a place where your resume lives. And that is hugely in thanks to the rise and fall of Twitter, formerly known Twitter, X. Not going away, just took that audience over to LinkedIn, and that's where people are chirping now, which is great. And then the other thing that changed so much was AI. Suddenly, computers are doing the things that we thought that they were going to do when we were kids watching it on TV. They're that smart now. Just at a Web Summit conference last week, and it's just about making sure. We've had a couple impact councils about this with the Impact Comms Institute, initially just looking at the ethics of it. And now it's kind of like very aware that it's like newsrooms are using it. There was a panel that I was watching with Newsweek and San Francisco Chronicle and Axios, and the editor-in-chief from Newsweek was very open and honest about how their content is AI generated but human-led. And she kind of underscored that it was human-led 3 times. But the woman from Axios's jaw kind of dropped to the floor, because she was like, I can't believe she's saying this on stage, that they use AI to write their stories. I was just like so appreciative that this editor-in-chief was being honest and saying the thing that the other editors from San Francisco Chronicle and Axios and everywhere else know is happening and pretending that it's not, or are pretending that it's not, or are lying about it happening because it's happening everywhere. Everyone's using it. And so her policy at Newsweek was that anything that is artificially generated needs 3 sets of editing eyes on it. And it's not fully, or it's still human led, but I just appreciate that honesty. So right now, anytime in the agency world, like there's going to be attrition, and clients, whether they're with you for 2 years or 6 years, like at some point that relationship typically ends. And now, since I got back, there's been 2 clients who have given notice in the past year, which is really good. I mean, that's a lot better than the early days, but these were long clients. And there's a part of me that's kind of like, is AI have anything to do with this? Is there someone on their team that's like, I can draft up a press release and do this really quickly? And so anyway, my solution to that isn't to be paranoid and think about that at night like I did for a second. It's to take action. And so at this conference, I was just thinking like, okay, what are all the different ways that we can just stay relevant and keep up with the times rather than, be afraid about this tsunami coming and not be prepared. And so I've been doing a lot of work internally with the agency on how we can, upgrade our AI policy. I want everyone to just be honest about when they're using it and where they're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want our clients to see it as an advantage. Some of our clients have already asked us how we're using it, and they didn't ask us in a negative way. It wasn't accusatory. It was like with the hope that we're using it. They want to make the most of their each retainer dollar, but also it's our tech clients that are asking us. It's our renewable and clean energy tech clients that have the curiosity about it because they're in that space. And they know that this is a tool that can help amplify and propel their communications efforts. And the more that I've been reading about it and building our strategy and working on a workshop that we're going to be giving to the team next week, there is a really big argument. It's not even an argument. The facts are the way AI is generating these recommendations and snippets is still through traditional SEO. So PR has never been more important. But, if we tell that to our clients, they're going to think it's a very self-serving conversation. So I'm not going to. But what I want my clients to hear from us is that we are starting to incorporate and keeping it in mind as we build out their strategies. And we're looking at just SEO as being like, we're not SEO specialists, we're not digital marketers, but there's a lot that we are doing that influence SEO. There's like, keeping their web pages and their blogs and bios and all that stuff fresh, because when the aggregators are pulling stuff and when the agents, the AI bots are pulling a response for something, it creates a little snippet at the top of your Chrome or your Safari page, and it gives a summary of what its recommendation is. And then after that are all the links. And so that snippet is from the newest resources. And so whether it's an article that's living on your site or off your site, it needs to be fresh. And so there's a lot of conversation happening about that with our team. I'm energized by it. I am excited by it. I'm an AI evangelist. I think it's really cool. I think if you're not, adapting it, you're going to be left behind. So that is a threat / opportunity.
Love it.
That's accurate. and also, like you said, it's a tool and it's meant to make you more efficient and effective for your clients, and they want to make sure, like, are you on top of this? Are you using it to the best of your ability? Which it sounds like you are, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And then of course we just have to make sure that the team doesn't get carried away with it, of course.
Right.
And then there's that.
Yeah. I'm more liberal with it than my VPs and the account managers. They're like, first draft needs to be human written, second draft can be polished. That's fine. I'm happy to support that policy. But I think that as time goes on, there's just so much content going out there right now. So like everybody is, posting a thought leadership piece on LinkedIn every day, and they're not writing them by themselves. And there's just a lot of noise getting generated now. So in order for our clients to stay relevant and to be part of the conversation, we have to generate a lot more content for them too. And so I think we all just need to be smart and honest about how that's being done. And looking at all those things. Exciting times. Yeah. That didn't
exciting times we're living in.
before I went on mat leave. So it's been a whole new world.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa. This was such a pleasure. Where can we send folks to learn more about you and your work?
YuluPR.com is our website. I mentioned the ImpactCommsInstitute.org is the nonprofit's website, or you can just find me on LinkedIn at Melissa Orozco, Orozco.
Amazing. We will link all of those in the show notes as well.
For sure.
Let's shine a light and learn from those who are doing it well and reduce the missed opportunities for good.
We want to hear from you. Let us know. What campaigns are you seeing that are doing it well? Who would you like to see us interview? And what campaign would you like us to audit?
Thank you, our listeners and supporters, for joining us on our mission to revolutionize the industry that we love.
Missed Opportunities for Good is a production of Aligned for Impact and Love of Good.